A lonely human rancher expecting a peaceful life with his mail-order bride finds his world turned upside down when a mysterious alien gunslinger arrives in her place. As danger looms, he's thrust into a battle he never asked for, a fight to rescue the woman he thought he was meant to marry. Joined by the fierce gunslinger, they venture into the wild unknown, hunted by enemies and racing against time. Secrets unravel, bonds form, and everything they thought they knew is tested. Will they survive the dangers ahead, or will their journey end in tragedy? One thing is certain. This is no ordinary love story. It's a fight for survival. Hey, yes, if you love thrilling sci-fi stories with a twist, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts. Let's dive into. The sun was setting behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the dry, dusty plains. A lone rancher stood on the porch of his small, weather-beaten house, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon. For years he had worked hard on his farm, tending to the cattle and repairing the fences, all while dreaming of something more. He longed for a companion, someone to share his life with, someone who could bring warmth and comfort to his lonely world. After months of searching, the rancher had finally found a solution to his problem. He had placed an order for a mail-order bride, a woman who would come to him from a distant city, a woman who could fill the emptiness in his heart. He had written letters, exchanged photos, and waited patiently. And now, finally, the day had come. His bride would arrive. He had spent the past week preparing. He had cleaned the house, set the table with the best china, and even planted fresh flowers by the front door. Everything was ready for the new chapter in his life. He could already imagine the warmth of her smile, the sound of her laughter, and the comfort of her presence. This was the life he had dreamed of, the life he had worked so hard for. As the hours passed, his excitement grew. He checked the clock again and again, pacing the porch and peering down the dusty road, waiting for the wagon that would bring her to him. But as the sun dipped lower in the sky, a strange feeling began to creep over him. Something wasn't right. He could feel it in the air. The wind had changed, and with it, the quiet of the evening seemed to hold a different kind of tension. Suddenly, in the distance, he saw the dust rising from the road. His heart raced. The wagon was finally coming. He could make out the silhouette of the driver, and as the wagon drew closer, he could see her, his bride, sitting there, ready to change his life forever. He could hardly wait to greet her. But as the wagon came to a stop, his excitement turned to confusion. The woman who stepped down was not the woman he had imagined. She was tall, far taller than any woman he had ever seen, with long, flowing hair and a fierce look in her eyes. She wore clothes unlike anything he had ever seen, and strapped to her waist was a large, shiny weapon that gleamed in the fading light of the day. The rancher blinked in disbelief. This was not the woman from the photos. This was not the bride he had expected. In fact, she didn't look anything like the sweet, gentle lady he had imagined. She looked dangerous. She was no ordinary woman. She was an alien, a gunslinger, a warrior, and she had arrived on his doorstep. As she stepped closer, the rancher's mind raced. He had no idea who she was or why she was here. Was she some kind of mistake? Had there been a mix-up with the order? But before he could say anything, the alien gunslinger spoke. "Where is she?" she asked, her voice cold and filled with authority. The rancher's confusion deepened. "Who?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The gunslinger's eyes narrowed. "The woman you ordered. The one who was supposed to be your bride. Where is she?" And just like that, the rancher's world was turned upside down. The woman he had been waiting for was gone, and in her place stood a stranger, a powerful, mysterious alien who had somehow taken her place. Who was this alien gunslinger, and why had she come? The rancher didn't know, but one thing was certain. His life would never be the same again. The rancher stood there, frozen for a moment, unsure of what he was seeing. The alien gunslinger's presence was overwhelming. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned him with an intensity that made him feel small and insignificant. He tried to speak, but the words stuck in his throat. His thoughts raced. This was a mistake. "This was all wrong. Who are you?" he asked, his voice shaky, but he could already tell the answer. She wasn't here by accident. She wasn't some lost traveler or a simple mix-up. She had come for something, but what? The gunslinger didn't answer immediately. She took a step closer, her boots crunching the dirt beneath her feet. The rancher flinched, instinctively stepping back, but she held up a hand to stop him. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said, her voice rough like gravel but strangely calm. "I'm here because of her." The rancher's brow furrowed. "Her?" he asked, confused. "What are you talking about? You're supposed to be—" "Her replacement?" The gunslinger's face softened for a moment, but it was fleeting. "I'm not a replacement. I'm here because she's been taken. She's in danger." His heart skipped a beat. "Taken? Who took her? Where is she?" He moved toward her, his hands shaking. This was all so much to take in. His future bride, the one he had waited for and dreamed of, wasn't coming after all. Instead, he was face to face with this strange, dangerous woman who had come to warn him, or perhaps to drag him into something far deeper than he could have imagined. The gunslinger sighed, looking down at the ground for a moment, collecting her thoughts. "It's not as simple as it seems. I was sent to protect her, but something went wrong. There's a group after her, people who will do anything to get their hands on her. They've already taken her, and I'm here to make sure she doesn't fall into their control." The rancher's mind swirled with confusion. "But what does any of this have to do with me? I just wanted to marry her to have a peaceful life. I never signed up for anything like this." "I know," she replied, her tone softening just a little. "But things don't always go according to plan. You think you're safe out here, that your life is simple and predictable? But you've got a bigger role to play now. The woman you were waiting for, she's not just some bride. She's important. And now you're involved." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. How could this be happening? He had never expected anything like this. He was just a rancher, a simple man who wanted a simple life. But now, he was tangled up in something much darker, much more complicated than he had ever imagined. The gunslinger's eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw something like sympathy in her gaze. "You're in danger now, too. They'll come after you whether you're ready or not." The rancher felt his heart racing again, fear creeping up his spine. "What do I do?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She looked at him, her jaw tightening. "We find her. We get her back. And we keep you both alive long enough to stop them from taking what they want." With that, the rancher knew there was no turning back. His life, once simple and quiet, had just been turned upside down by a strange alien outlaw. And now, together, they would face whatever danger lay ahead. But the question lingered. Could he trust her? And more importantly, could he trust himself to survive the storm that was coming? The rancher stood at the edge of his property, his mind reeling. The gunslinger had explained enough for him to understand the gravity of the situation, but that didn't make it any easier to accept. His life had been simple, predictable, a routine of tending to cattle, repairing fences, and dreaming of the wife he had imagined for so long. Now, all of that seemed like a distant memory. His peaceful world had been shattered in an instant. The gunslinger stood nearby, her posture tense, scanning the horizon as if expecting danger at any moment. Her weapon, some kind of sleek alien pistol, was still holstered at her side, but he could tell that it was not for decoration. She was ready for whatever might come their way. "How do we even begin to find her?" the rancher asked, his voice more certain now. Fear still gripped his chest, but there was something else, too. Curiosity, determination, and a strange pull toward the gunslinger that he couldn't shake. Despite everything, he couldn't ignore the feeling that he had a role to play in this story. A role he never asked for, but one he was now a part of. The gunslinger turned to him, her expression hard. "We'll follow the trail. They won't be hard to track. These people are sloppy. But we don't have much time. The longer we wait, the harder it will be to catch up. If we move now, we might just make it in time." The rancher nodded, his heart racing. He wasn't sure what he was getting into, but one thing was clear. He couldn't turn back. He had to help her, even if he didn't understand why. As they began walking toward the old ranch truck, he glanced at the gunslinger. She moved with a practiced grace, every step calculated, every motion purposeful. She was a woman of few words, but in her silence, he could feel the weight of her past, a past she wasn't eager to share. Why her? he asked, unable to stop himself. Why is she so important? The gunslinger paused for a moment before answering. She's not just a woman. She's something more. Something they want. Something I was meant to protect. I failed, and now I'm here to fix it. But the truth is, I don't know everything about her either. I'm not the only one after her, and those who are hunting her won't stop until they get what they want. Her words left him with more questions than answers. Who were these people? What was so special about the woman he was supposed to marry? And why had the gunslinger been assigned to protect her? They reached the truck, and he climbed in, the sound of the engine starting breaking the silence. The rancher's mind was still racing, but now there was no turning back. Whatever was coming, they would face it together, or so he hoped. As they drove down the dirt road, the sun setting behind them, the rancher couldn't shake the feeling that this journey was only just beginning. He had no idea what dangers lay ahead, but one thing was certain: his life would never be the same. And neither would the gunslingers. Their fates were now tied together, and the only way out was forward. The road stretched on ahead, the truck's wheels kicking up dust as the sun dipped below the horizon. The rancher could feel the weight of the gunslinger's silence beside him, the tension between them thickening with each passing mile. They hadn't said much since they started their journey, but he could sense that she was deep in thought, her mind elsewhere, perhaps on the woman he was meant to marry, or the dangerous road that lay ahead. He glanced over at her, noticing the way her eyes constantly scanned the landscape, alert and calculating. Every now and then, she would mutter something under her breath, her fingers twitching near the grip of her weapon. It wasn't a comforting feeling, not by a long shot, but he could tell that her readiness had nothing to do with him and everything to do with the unseen threats lurking just beyond their sight. "Where are we headed?" the rancher asked, breaking the silence. His voice sounded odd, foreign even, after the quiet drive. He wasn't sure if it was the stress of the situation or something deeper, but his words felt heavier, as if the weight of the unknown had settled deep within him. The gunslinger's gaze never wavered from the road ahead, but her lips curled into something like a grin, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're not ready for the truth of where we're going, but you'll see soon enough." Her voice was calm, almost detached, but there was a certain edge to it. She was in control, but she wasn't revealing anything. The rancher wanted to press her further, but something told him it was best not to. They drove in silence for hours, the landscape changing from the familiar dusty plains of the rancher's land to a rugged, unfamiliar terrain. The truck's engine hummed steadily, but the rancher's mind buzzed with questions. Who were these people chasing the woman? What was it that made her so special? And most importantly, what had the gunslinger's role really been in all this? Suddenly, without warning, the gunslinger's hand shot out, pressing firmly against his chest. "Stop!" she commanded, her voice low and urgent. The rancher slammed his foot on the brake, the truck jerking to a halt. They sat there for a moment, the vehicle idling in the quiet darkness of the night. "What is it?" the rancher asked, his heart racing. The gunslinger was already reaching for her weapon, her body tensing. "We're not alone," she muttered, eyes darting to the left. He turned, his instincts kicking in as he followed her gaze. A figure stood in the distance, barely visible against the black of the night, but the rancher's gut told him that it wasn't someone friendly. "Who is that?" he asked, his voice tight with fear. "An enemy. One of the ones hunting her," she replied, her hand gripping the pistol at her side. "Get ready." The rancher's stomach dropped. He had no idea what kind of danger they were about to face, but the feeling in the pit of his stomach told him it was something far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. This was real now. There were no more doubts. No more time for second thoughts. With a deep breath, he reached for his own rifle, his hands shaking as he prepared for whatever was about to unfold. The gunslinger's eyes locked onto the figure in the distance, her focus sharp, her every sense on high alert. This was no longer just about a bride. This was about survival. And the rancher was now a part of something much bigger than himself. The figure in the distance moved closer, and the rancher's pulse quickened. There was no turning back now. The air felt thick with tension as the figure in the distance slowly came into clearer view. The rancher's heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing in his ears. Beside him, the gunslinger remained as still as a stone, her eyes never leaving the approaching figure. Every muscle in her body was coiled tight, ready to spring into action at the slightest threat. He could feel her focus, like an invisible force pressing against him. As the figure drew nearer, the rancher could make out more details. It was a man dressed in dark clothing, his face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. The shadows made it impossible to see his expression, but the way he moved, slow and deliberate, gave off a sense of confidence, even arrogance. He wasn't in a hurry, and that unnerved the rancher. The gunslinger's voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the air like a knife. "Stay calm. Don't engage unless I say so." The rancher nodded, gripping his rifle tighter. His palms were slick with sweat, and he could feel his breath growing shallow. This was no simple encounter. He wasn't just protecting his farm anymore. He was protecting something much larger, something far more dangerous than he ever imagined. The figure stopped just within speaking distance. The rancher could feel the tension snap into place, the silence between them thick and suffocating. The man's eyes, dark, cold, locked onto the gunslinger. "I've been looking for you," the man said, his voice smooth but laced with malice. The gunslinger didn't flinch. "You're too late," she replied, her tone even, betraying no emotion. "What do you want?" The man smiled, a twisted smirk that barely lifted the corners of his lips. "I want her. You know that." The rancher felt a chill run down his spine. "Her?" he blurted, his voice cracking. The man's gaze shifted to him, then back to the gunslinger. "You think this is just about some mail-order bride? This goes much deeper than that. But I'll make it simple for you. Step aside and let me do my job." The rancher stood his ground, but his legs felt like they might buckle beneath him. This wasn't what he had signed up for. He had never wanted to be involved in something like this. All he had wanted was to live a quiet life with the woman he had imagined. Instead, he was standing face to face with a man who wanted her for reasons he didn't even understand. The gunslinger stepped forward, her voice calm, but there was a new edge to it now. "You're not getting her. She's already gone from your reach. You should leave before I make you." The man chuckled darkly. "You think you can stop me? You're just one person. And you're no match for the people I work for." Without another word, he reached for a weapon at his side, but the gunslinger was quicker. In an instant, she drew her own pistol, the sharp crack of the shot splitting the air. The man staggered back, his hand clutching his side where blood began to seep through his fingers. "Leave now," the gunslinger said, her voice colder than ever. "Before it gets worse for you." The man, grimacing in pain, glared at her, then slowly backed away into the darkness, vanishing just as quickly as he had appeared. The rancher stood frozen, his mind struggling to catch up with what had just happened. The gunslinger lowered her weapon, her gaze never leaving the spot where the man had disappeared. "That's one down," she muttered under her breath, her voice hard with resolve. The rancher's heart was still racing. He looked at the gunslinger, but words failed him. He had just witnessed something he never could have imagined, a world he didn't understand. But now there was no denying it. He was in this, whether he was ready or not. The gunslinger turned to him, her eyes softening just slightly. "You're part of this now. You can't turn back. But if we do this right, we'll get her back. We'll finish this." He nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. But deep down, something inside him had shifted. He wasn't just fighting to get his bride back anymore. He was fighting for his survival. And for the first time since this all began, he wasn't sure if he could make it out alive. But he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't alone. The night had grown heavier, the air thick with the scent of earth and dust. The rancher and the gunslinger moved in silence, their footsteps muffled by the soft ground. They hadn't spoken since the encounter with the man in the dark, and the rancher could feel the weight of that silence. His mind was still reeling from what had just happened. He had never imagined that his life would be like this, caught in a web of danger, fighting for a woman he barely knew, with an alien gunslinger as his only ally. They reached a small, abandoned shack on the edge of a dried-up creek. The gunslinger motioned for him to stay back and check the perimeter. The rancher, though hesitant, obeyed. He had learned quickly that she wasn't someone who appreciated hesitation. Every move she made was purposeful, practiced. He admired her for it, but it also left him feeling small and out of place. She came back to him after a few moments, her face as unreadable as ever. "We rest here for now," she said in a low voice. "Tomorrow we head further into the mountains." "That's where they're keeping her." The rancher nodded but didn't say anything. He wasn't sure he could speak without his voice trembling. They settled inside the shack, which was nothing more than 4 wooden walls and a tin roof, but it was enough for the moment. The gunslinger built a small fire, her movements swift and confident, and for a moment, the rancher saw the flicker of something in her eyes, a vulnerability that had been absent up until now. "What's your plan?" the rancher asked, breaking the silence. His voice was rough, and it surprised him how desperate he sounded. The gunslinger didn't look at him as she stoked the fire. "Plan?" she repeated, almost as if the word itself was foreign to her. "I'll get her back. That's all you need to know." It wasn't the answer the rancher was hoping for, but it was the truth in a way. She wasn't here to explain every detail to him. She was here to get the job done. The silence stretched between them once again, and for a moment, the rancher thought about what he was leaving behind. His ranch, his quiet life, the dream of a future with a woman who would care for him. All of it felt like a distant memory now, a life that was no longer his. He was part of something bigger now, something dangerous. And yet, as he glanced at the gunslinger, something inside him clicked. This was his reality now. He looked at her again, seeing her in a new light. She wasn't just an alien outlaw. She was someone who had been through hell, someone who had fought and bled for causes she didn't always understand. And now, she was dragging him into that fight. "I'm with you," he said quietly. "Let's finish this." She looked at him then, her expression softening just for a moment before she nodded. "Tomorrow we ride." And with that, the fire burned brighter, and the rancher realized that whatever lay ahead, there was no turning back now. The first light of dawn filtered through the cracks in the shack, casting long shadows across the dusty floor. The rancher woke with a start, his mind instantly flooded with thoughts of the woman they were trying to save, the dangers ahead, and the strange partnership he had found himself in. He rubbed his face with his hands, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep. But it was no use. There was no time for rest now. The gunslinger had already risen, her silhouette sharp against the morning light as she checked the gear they had packed the night before. "You ready?" she asked without turning to look at him. Her voice was steady, calm, but there was a hint of urgency beneath it. The rancher nodded, swallowing hard. "I'm ready, just tell me what we're doing." The gunslinger gave him a sidelong glance. "We find her. We get her back. No more waiting." That was all the explanation he got, but it was enough. There was a certain simplicity to it, a directness that felt foreign to him but strangely comforting. They had no room for doubts now. His world had shifted, and there was no turning back. They mounted their horses, the soft sound of hooves breaking the silence as they rode through the rugged terrain. The sun was still low in the sky, casting a golden glow across the land, but the rancher couldn't shake the feeling that the calm of the morning was a cruel illusion. The danger was out there, waiting for them, and time was running out. The gunslinger led the way, her posture as unyielding as ever. She didn't speak much, her focus on the road ahead, but the rancher could feel the tension between them. They were close now, so close to the place where everything would come to a head. The closer they got, the more the rancher's heart raced. He wasn't just riding to save a woman he barely knew anymore. He was riding for something far bigger. The gunslinger had dragged him into a world of violence, danger, and impossible choices, and now he had to face the consequences of that. As the landscape changed, becoming more jagged and inhospitable, the rancher couldn't help but wonder what he was really fighting for. Was it her? Was it the life he had imagined for himself before all of this chaos had started? Or was it something deeper, something he hadn't fully understood yet? The gunslinger had opened his eyes to a reality he hadn't known existed, and now there was no going back. They reached a clearing just as the sun reached its peak. In the distance, the rancher saw the outline of a small compound, guarded and dark, a place that reeked of danger. This was it. This was the end of the road. The gunslinger turned to him, her eyes locked onto his. "This is it. You stick with me no matter what, the rancher nodded. He had already come this far. There was no turning back now. Together, they moved toward the compound, ready to face whatever awaited them. The storm had arrived, and there was no more room for hesitation.